One of our favorite tools is the clover binding tool. We use it to make bindings for our quilts that are also wonderful ties for face masks. But what if you don't have one? Well, I'm going to show you how to make your own out of something you probably already have at home. 3 business cards and some tape. It's that simple. So if you don't happen to have business cards, you can use index cards or heavy cardstock and cut 3 2 by 3.5 inch rectangles. With those, the next thing you'll want to do is print out the PDF of the instructions below. There are 3 pieces involved here. You're going to have a base piece, a center piece, and a handle. And the way you'll do it is just take your business cards and lay it right on top of each of the templates in the pattern. And you'll put marks at the end to indicate where you're going to fold. And then I'm just going to take a ruler, and I like a fine ballpoint pen. I'm going to draw those lines on my cards. And the reason I like the fine pen is if I push a little hard, it not only creates a folding line, but it scores the paper a bit, which makes it much easier to fold. And I'm going to do that for the base piece. I'm also going to do those lines for the center and for the handle. 1, 2, 3. And then I'll take this and fold along those lines, and it just folds very naturally right away because of the scoring effect of the pen. But I can also fold it, crease it just a bit more if I want with the pen itself. Now the centerpiece, I'm going to take paper scissors. We never use our fabric scissors on paper because it tends to dull scissors. And I'm trimming off a little sliver that I've marked on each end. And there's a diagonal notch, a little notch in the middle that I'm going to cut as well. And we'll be using that later as we make the binding. Then once again, I'm using my fold lines to fold in and out, in and out. And this is all diagrammed in the pattern as well. And then I'm going to take a piece of tape, and instead of taping the top together, I'm going to leave a gap of about 1/8 of an inch. This gap is pretty important, so I'm going to leave a little gap. And now I've got the base and the center. The last one is the handle. Once again, I'm cutting a little sliver off where I've marked at the edges, and then folding in half and back up and back up. All that's left is to tape these together. I'm going to start with 2 pieces of tape, and I've got my center piece that angles in this direction. I'm going to mate it to the angled base, and I'm taping my edges together. I'm going to the other side, and I'm also taping here. There we go. And then a couple more pieces of tape. I'm going to tape my handle on about, not right at the edge, but about 1/2 inch back. That gives me room to safely be away from the heat of the iron if I'm pressing, and it also gives me room to work and pull out the fabric at the front. So now we've completed the tool. I have a diagram on the second page of the instructions of how you pull this through. It's really quite easy. You start with a 2-inch strip of fabric and you cut it to a point. Now this doesn't have to be cut on the bias. It can be cut selvage to selvage, which we find makes a great length for a face mask tie. The first time you feed it through could be a little tricky because it has to go between the center and the base. And one way I've found that helps is if I take a pencil and just slide it between those pieces before I use it the first time, it creates a nice channel. And I'm going to slide it right in between the base and the center point. And it should start to come out. If it doesn't come right out, you can take a plain old pin and pull it through. That's why we left that gap and why there's a notch. And then as you pull, you're going to see it should be folding the raw edges right into the middle, really nicely, and we'll just press to keep that nice and flat. So I would be doing this on the ironing board usually, and pressing as I go along. And what it will give me is a nice piece of binding with the edges folded in. If I were using it for a quilt, I would bind. If I'm using it for a face mask, I would tuck the raw edges in, and I would simply top stitch all along to make a tie that will be used for the mask. So if you're going to be doing a quilt binding, take a look at our other tutorials that show how to piece continuous binding yardage, and also how to actually put the binding on the quilt, including those tricky mitered corners, because you can totally do it. And it's a huge time saver to use this as a binding method because it's just top stitched right onto the quilt. So I hope this saves you time. I hope you really enjoy making your own tool that you can use for a long time.